Hey, welcome everybody. Happy Wednesday. Today we have a great episode and a great conversation. I'm so excited for today's guest, Dr. Melanie Rodriguez. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm excited. I know we've been like talking about these things, especially in like some different circles, and this is just in the air with everything that's going on. So I'm so excited for the topic of leadership and radical collaboration, which I think we need to break down for people for sure. But want to welcome all of you. We have so much going on, and I'll share kind of our upcoming events towards the end of this episode. But right now, we want to get into this discussion that people are waiting for. And Melanie, first, give us a little background on you.
Sure. So, Doctora Melanie Rodriguez, I have been an executive coach, talent management practitioner for about 20 years now. Grew up in corporate, in the oil and gas sector, always talent management. So everything organizational capability, and have been doing coaching, leadership development, ERG work for some time now. I started a company called Elevate Latinas. So I do a lot of that work through Elevate Latinas. Really, it is about diversifying the leadership pipeline, making sure that we are having the right conversations to amplify the amazing work that Latinas do across the country, across industries, across functions, and really work to get us into the spaces that we need to be.
Yeah, I love that. So you said some key words, the right conversations. So let's talk about that. What are the right conversations that we should be having?
You're so, I love that question because I think that, one of the things that you and I have been talking about in different circles is that sometimes conversations can be very surface level, very superficial, right? Meaning we know the data, we know the situation, we are all going through the times that there is today. And the reality is, with that information, we need to be able to create action and create some movement, do something with it, right? Y ahora qué? So my big thing for everything is so what? So we have this information, we have data, we have a swelling need to do something. And so what? What are we going to do about it? And that's, I think, where radical collaboration comes in. And I love your point earlier. You said, we kind of have to define what that really means. For me, radical collaboration is all about thinking about how do we move past just that superficial level of doing things together and really trying to create change for the positive intent of what we're trying to move, right? It's about transparency. It's about getting away from this crab mentality of there's only one spot, when the reality is we're eligible or we're qualified for any position that's out there. So there's no one spot that we're trying to fill. There's no one box that we're trying to, be the token person for. We're great for all these roles. And so we need to be able to work together to amplify each other, to work across organizations, across companies, across functions, to do things together so that we can really highlight all the amazing work that we do.
Yeah, I love that, because it's not about one spot, and it is about understanding that we are obligated to work with one another, right? If we want to move the ball forward for our community so that we are seen as not just like, is she ready, that Latina? Because she looked like she's, had a different upbringing, and it's more so like, no, we know we're ready. We are the problem solvers. We are solution driven. So when we lift others up, we lift up all of us. We lift ourselves up in that process. So I love that you shared that we do need to find ways to work together and stop seeing anyone else as a potential threat that may take your spot of some sort, because that is such a minor thinking. Like we need to break that. We need to break that.
And it's hard because it's something that we've been conditioned to, right? We have always, when you grow up, you go through competition. When you are vying for a job, you're trying to get that one slot. And that puts you in this mentality of there's only one position for me to fill, or there's only, a
Yeah.
scarcity mentality of there's only this that I can do. But the reality is, there's so much more out there, and the right thing will come to you, right?
Yeah.
Um, I
Absolutely.
think that one of the things that stands out to me right now is we're in a huge time of uncertainty, and there's a lot going on within society, within politics, within business. A lot of industries are starting to feel the pressure. We're seeing prices rise in, a lot of different ways as también, and it's creating a lot of uncertainty in the environment overall, which for me says, during these times of uncertainty, the idea of coming together as a community is not an option. There's no choice in what we're at right now. Coming together, that unity that we can create together as a community has to be a very intentional and powerful strategy for us to create a common message, to come together as a community, and to really understand how we can amplify each other even more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so let's go into the leadership side of like, so at work, because we have professionals, we have entrepreneurs, but like at work, the Latinas that are at work, maybe looking to move up the ladder, right? How can they profess those leadership skills and the radical collaboration to showcase those talents?
So, what comes to mind for me when I think about having conversations about leadership with Latinos and Latinas specifically, I think about how our lived experiences influence how we lead, right? So, what is my upbringing? How does it influence how I show up at work? One of the biggest cultural norms or values in the Latino community is community. It's relationship building. It's the way that we can connect with one another really easily. In business, when we're out there at the, having cafecito and having conversations with people, or like going to see people between meetings, or if you want to, ask somebody about their day before you get straight into business during a meeting, sometimes that can be seen as a negative thing because you're being too social. For me, I like to look at it from a different perspective and think about how can you be really intentional and strategic about those relationships that you create, and make it into a strategic network, right? So people from different departments because you've had cafecito here, there, and the other, or you've gone to lunch with so-and-so, or whatever that means. But that also means more about them, or more about their business, and you can use that time to understand the problems that are going on within their department, for example. And you can be the conduit or the person, the go-between that's going to connect them and say, hey, I know that you're having this problem within your group. You should go talk to so-and-so from this other group because they have a solution that might be helpful for you. So being really intentional about that, the value that is instilled in us around community and relationship building to create those networks of really powerful connections is a great way to collaborate across. Right?
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Like connecting people to other people, right? Sharing your contacts, sharing the people that you've met and making introductions because again, sometimes that crab in a barrel mentality seems to think, well, if I introduce her to him, they're going to work together and that, I'm losing in some way. Pero que no, like you are seen as someone who brings people together. That is an attribute that leaders have. So getting out of that thinking that, let me connect these two, let me be intentional because I think that they can most certainly benefit one another. And everybody wins when we do that.
Absolutely. And I think, if you think about it from, right, as the leadership journey, right, it's evergreen. You're always doing something different. And as you progress throughout leadership, your job, your role moves from doing the day-to-day activities. Like you're not the tactical person. Once you become a manager or a director or whatever it is, it's not your job to do the work. So if you can already be seen as the person who is the connector, who is the person who can see the bigger picture and connect resources, that already gives you that leadership, the perspective of being a leader from that sense. So you don't have to fight for proving yourself when you're applying for those types of roles because you're already seen as somebody who can connect people.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Now, I was reading something. It was talking about like seeing everybody's like what they bring to the table, right? Like versus, okay, I know that person doesn't know this, or making an assumption that that person may not know this or have this experience. But how do we pull out of people some of that information? How do we, and I think through conversation, like you mentioned, is sometimes that small talk, when intentional, can really allow you to see what somebody's gifts are, what they bring to the table. But what else? What do you think is like the best way to approach it, especially in a work environment when you don't want to seem maybe I'm too social? Is there a strategy for that specifically, or is it really just going out to lunch and really building and understanding?
I think that it is compounding, meaning like you have to notice things amongst other people. And that can be really hard amongst other Latinos because we tend to be sometimes tend to be more humble, right? Like we're not going to go and talk about all the great work that we're doing. Not a
Yeah,
lot of people do that within the community. There are
yeah,
some people who are really good at it. And I always try to learn from them because even I am not great at that, right?
yeah,
También, when when you work with people, it is about noticing things that they do over time so that you can pick up on, oh, I remember that you were really good at, you know, asking difficult questions in the meeting. So I would love for you to look at this and give me your devil's advocate opinion on it because you're
love
really
that.
good at poking holes in stuff, right?
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good one right there. Is really understanding the little things, that somebody does, and say, how could I invite them in to a situation where maybe there's something we have to figure out as a team. How can I invite them in and call that out? Call out, you were really great at that. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, it's
awesome.
all about highlighting. And for me, I think one of the things I said I'm not good at. Um, I'm practicing, should I say? I'm practicing advocating for myself, but
Yeah.
I'm really good at advocating for other people. I like to connect people. I like to make people feel good because I recognize something that they are good at, right?
Yeah.
And I think that when I think the other part about radical collaboration, I think that doing things that I'm good at for other people creates trust, right? So if I'm good at calling you out on something that you're good at, um, and giving you praise or recognizing, not even giving you praise publicly, but just telling you, oh, you're really good at that, or giving you feedback on whatever,
Mhm. Yep.
it creates that community of trust. And that community of trust is this kind of foundational factor of what's going to get us out of that crab mentality, right? Because we can create that trust amongst each other. We can start to collaborate more because we're more willing to share ideas, or we're more willing to take your critical feedback and know that it's coming from a good place. And we're
Mhm.
more willing to have these hard conversations because we feel more safe to do that.
Yeah. 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 I love that. Because we do feel like, oh, I like this person. I can trust this person with some things because they were able to call out something that I did that was good. We like that. We like when other people call us out and like, Sandra, you did this really good, or, whatever, you did this really, really well. And I like the way that came out. Or then you really start to build a bond and connection and a sense of understanding with someone else, which allows for further collaboration and further and better performance, especially in a work environment, right? Because now you're looking at it from, okay, we're in this together to solve this, especially for corporations. We need that. We need our teams to like want to work together and feel like excited to work together to build something, because that excitement's going to bring innovation. Um,
Yeah,
sure.
and I think about it también from like United Latinas does an amazing job of putting together events and conversations where you create that community amongst us, right? It's a safe space to have conversations about things that you probably normally would not have conversations about. And even within that space, to feel vulnerable and feel comfortable to be able to bring something up amongst people who are other professionals who are, whether they're just starting out or they're kind of a little further along in their career, it is hard to say I need help. And I think one of the great things that you do is really create that space where it's okay to say, ayúdame con esto because I need to, I would love an idea about this, or have been working on this. What do you think about whatever, right? So um, that space is so important, especially right now where, you can come together at the conference and bring up some of these amazing ideas and have some of these conversations that otherwise you might not necessarily have.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I appreciate that you brought that up. Yeah, we have meetings sometimes, and somebody will come and say, I'm going through this, or I need help with this. And everyone wants to help. Everyone immediately is like, try this, or do this, or how about this? And because we want to help, we want to help others,
Yeah.
especially
And
when,
it's another cultural norm, right? It's a cultural value of ours. Like we come with hearts of service. We are helpers at our root, whether we want to be or not. Whether it's because that's the way we were born, or because our parents told us tienes que ir a ayudar, right? Like what you got to get yourself in there and go help bring in the groceries, or go help, in la iglesia or lo que sea, right? It is a norm that we grow up with, and so that idea it, but I think the other side of it is we have that idea of independence. And like if you were brought up in a house where your parents were working all the time and you have to do everything on your own, you have to figure out how to cook, or you have to figure out how to whatever, get home after school and lock the door, whatever it is. We grow up to also to be very independent, so asking for help is harder.
yeah,
So I would always encourage people to applaud the people who ask for help in those moments, because we're very willing to share our experience and say, hey, let me help you with your problem, but I want to tell you about mine.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we need to break that. But still, I think that's a human nature thing. It's like, all right, because we try to figure out our own problems sometimes ourselves, right? It's like, all right, I know I'm going to figure it out. I just got to marinate on it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That is true.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, when you have these events, both virtual and in person, what are some of the things that can create those, moments of tension where people find it harder to step up into those moments?
Yep. Well, we don't really, moments of tension, maybe not so much. Well, I mean, when it comes to speaking, when we do public speaking, that would be the only time where people are a little hesitant to share, because it's almost like you feel like I'm on the spot, so I'm going to be judged. People are, I think we're breaking a lot of people out of that feeling, and especially people who have come, several times over to our speaker circle. Which we have one tomorrow, by the way. But so I think public speaking. I think the idea, like, there are some people that will raise their hand, like, I'll go, I'm ready to go, I'll go first, kind of thing. And then there's a lot of people that are shy and are still, rightfully so, right? Sometimes it's the fear of being judged. I don't want anybody to criticize me, or just be. And a lot of that could be baggage from growing up as well. I feel like I've been criticized in a lot of different ways growing up, culturally, because it's just kind of been the way that it's been. But other than that, I think we cultivate an environment, that people feel space, like feel like it's safe to communicate and to share. Eventually, they come out of their share, they'll shell, and they'll feel comfortable, because we don't tolerate anything but that. Like, we're like, this is awesome. This is a safe space. This is here for improvement. And we have to have that mentality of, I'm here to grow. I'm not here. I don't, I want to be in a place where I can be myself. I can be authentic. I can grow, and I can be around other people who also want to grow. Right. I think that's what makes us even hungrier to evolve, to be a better version of ourselves, or to learn new skill sets. Is I want to be around other people that want what I want, which is to be better, to be, move up in the career, or, grow my business. So yeah, we do a lot of that. It's always like, this is, and everybody feels that. Everybody feels like, our spaces are safe, thankfully, is we put that energy out there. That's the energy that it is, so
As it
something
should be.
as a
As it should be.
yeah. Yeah, we've had one time, there was one member a couple years ago, she's like negative, like a negative Nancy, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's not okay here. And they don't, and because we don't tolerate, not that we tolerate's not the right word, but we just don't, our energy just kind of doesn't allow for someone that is negative and judgmental, or any of those negative attributes to exist in our space. We're all about cultivating sisterhood, because what we want to do is to grow as a community, especially with the changing environment of today, right? It's not, you can't rise alone, and we need to rise as a community, because we're seen as a Latino or a Latina. So there's stigma, and there's stereotypes attached to that. So we need to understand the importance of growing together. And like when one person elevates, we all elevate. When one person is coming to the table and saying, I'm going after this thing, or I'm starting my business, or my goal is to get up to this level in my career, that should make everybody hungry to say, you know what, that inspires me. I want to do something to, what can I do, to move myself up? And you want to be around that energy of other people.
Absolutely. And that's where that idea of radical collaboration comes in, right? Because you're creating that space where people feel safe to have those conversations, and you get to throw around ideas around, what can I do different for me? Or how can I help you think about something different for you? And también, how do we come together to do something great together?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what's up. That's and that's what we should be doing. That's what we're doing. Yes. Yeah. So now, how do we save the world? How do we the bigger goals of, all right, how do we solve all the issues that are going to, I don't know. I always approach things like, obviously sometimes some of those things are overwhelming, but it's like, man, how do we fix the problems? How do we fix disunity, disconnection, amongst people? How do we get everybody on the same page to understand that we're in this together? Life is short. We have an obligation and a responsibility to support one another. That's how our ancestors were. They support the communities, supported one another. They were for each other, not like against each other. And now we live in a society where it is that mentality of, if you get it, I can't get it. That means I'm losing something. No, that's not. If you get it, I'm going to get it too. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm going to bring you with me.
Yes.
I'm going to me, or I'm going to share it, because that's I don't know, that's the way I am.
Yeah.
Bring you in for the conversation, or bring you in for the, to think about how things work, or to, whatever it might look like. I think times are changing, though. I would say that for what I've seen is, and let me also first just say, I have to acknowledge that I live in a little bit of a bubble. So I'm in Texas, but I'm in Houston, and I'm in downtown Houston. Like, so when you think about like a big red ocean with a little blue dot in it, that's where I live. I live on the little blue island in the big red ocean, right? So I say that to say, I know that there is a little bit of a like rose-colored glasses that I have on in terms of the things that I experience relative to what some other people do. Pero también I have really intentional conversations to make sure that I inform my perspective, right? I try not to think about things just from the way I see them in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you and I have had some conversations on a more national scale about things that are talked about at conferences, like the Latino GDP, or the way that we're growing as a community, the population growth, the way that we're represented in media. Like, all of this information is out there, and I think it's great information to have. But what I appreciate about the way that we talk is like, y ahora qué? Like, what are we going to do with that? How do we create movement around some of this? And I love being able to poke holes and ask questions about that in different communities. So it's just in another, right before this, no, I was almost late, because right before this, I was having another conversation very similar to this, in that, how do you create movement within the space that we're in? How do we work to amplify each other and talk about all the good things that are going on within the various places? How do we use the information that you're getting out of whatever report it is? It could be the, Latinas, Lean and Latina State of Latinas Incorporate, or it could be the Bowdoin Agency's State of Latinas in the U.S., or it could be, whatever else. There's so many of them out there. But how do you use that information to do something, even if it's in your own local community, even if it's for you to understand what it really is, and to help lift the mood right around you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the what do we do now with that information? And I think that's what we're working towards, is allowing and finding ways to support people, to give them some of those answers of, okay, well, what do we do now? And when we think about especially our buying power, and especially now more than ever, when a lot of companies have kind of turned back, which is so uncourageous, like it's just so, like, why, we need to stand up for something, but just finding solutions to, okay, we know our GDP, so if we know that we have such tremendous buying power, we need to understand how to make sure that we're using that power and spending it with the right resources that support our community. So being intentional about questioning, where am I buying this at? And is this corporation not just supporting Latinos, but are they supporting the community as a whole? Are they supporting the Black and brown community as a whole? Because growing up, back to how we grew up, I remember thinking as a little girl, we're second class, and I don't know how that got planted in me, to be honest. I just remember as a little girl, like, thinking we're second class citizens. And then I'm like, no, I want a white picket fence one day, and I'm like, because the white picket fence was in the movies for the non-brown people, so, and it's not about, colorism. It's not about that. It's about owning the fact that there is no true differentiator when it comes to our humanity. We are worthy. We are intrinsically worthy. And man, when you own that, you're like, well, let's do something with this, man. Let's help the world. Let's change the world. Let's make a movement. Let's help everybody understand their true worth. Because ¿qué va a ser when our community understands that they're no longer second class or third class? They're intrinsically worthy divinely. So what do you do now with that power? What do you do now with that power, knowing that you are worthy? And I've been in spaces where I was the only Latina, and then, like, where I felt for a moment like, oh, do I belong here? But when we think those thoughts, that energy,
Really?
they could feel that energy, right? So they treat you as such, and it only affirms what you were thinking, versus showing up like, I belong here. I got some ideas. I know what I can contribute. I know what I bring to the table, and people feel that energy as well. If you just think those thoughts, and then people give you the respect that you so rightfully deserve, and it's about showing up that way.
Absolutely. I have a mantra to insert myself in places where people think I don't belong.
I like it.
And it's very intentional. Like, I'm going to be the only brown person there, and that's okay. I'm going to show you what we're all about.
I love it.
Not, right. So you will catch me in a lot of, anyways. Yes.
Yeah.
How about that? Okay.
Oh,
I know. So what do we do? I think what I heard you say is, we have all of this information, especially like the buying power piece, right? So I would love to throw out a call to action of absolutely support the organization, the companies, some of the bigger companies that support us, but also partner the Latino GDP with the fact that we are the fastest demographic, or the largest demographic, to be starting small businesses. So we should be spending that GDP on our own small businesses, right? I know sometimes it's harder to have to go to different places to buy all the things you need, but if you can support a Latino owned company or a minority owned company, do that, because there's so many companies out there that are struggling through the times that are going on right now with everything that's going on también. And if we can support them, if I can support them, I'm all about doing that.
Yeah. I love it.
I also think it's really important to make sure that we're staying informed, right? So find information that is important to you, and then figure out what you want to do with that. Because I know that you're going to have a lot of information that you're going to be sharing at the conference. So, and at other events.
Yeah.
Let's make a plan for it.
I love it. I love it. Definitely. And I think we will need to create a list of some of those organizations. And if you have a Latino owned organization or Latino, any community that supports our community, but if you are a Latino owned business, send us your company name and your information, because we want to start curating a list of businesses that other people can support. I know we do a little bit of that through our Latina shop, but we really want to build a comprehensive list of organizations that have services and products that we need, and start keeping our dollar as much as we can within our community, because we're the worst at it. We're the worst. Jewish community does amazingly well. The Black community does amazingly well. The Latino community really, really needs to work on that. So I love that call to action. Spend more money within the community, because that is how we're going to elevate more. That's how we're going to get a Latino-owned Walmart, right? A Latino-owned conglomerate that we can go and shop for the little household things that we need. And we're supporting, wouldn't that be dope if we had like our own, that would be. Let's make it.
So in Texas, there's a big grocery chain that's called H-E-B. It's a massive grocery store chain in Texas. And they have Latino-specific stores. It's called Mi Tienda. And so it's awesome. It's like Walmart kind of, but for Latino business stuff. If you were in Texas, go to Mi Tienda.
I love it. I love it. Well, I can't believe we're already over time. And I'm like, wait a second. We have
Did we just start?
Yeah, no, I felt like we just started. My gosh, we're already over the 30 mark. But we got to do this again. And I'm excited because you're going to be at our conference. So this is great. If you guys aren't registered yet, March 28th is our conference in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's going to be dope. It's going to be beautiful energy. It's going to be powerful conversations. You're going to connect. You're going to build. You're going to learn. And we're all intentionally going to grow together and learn from one another, and in a beautiful, safe space. So definitely register.
All right. See y'all there.
Thank you. Yes, everybody better be there, or you're a square. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Melanie. Any last words before we close out?
Oh, sí se puede. That is so cliche, but it is also so true. And sí se puede juntos, right? We can do this. We can do it together, and we can bring each other along for the journey.
Love it. Mic drop. Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next week.